Okay, so let's go through the process. The first button there, remote endpoint configuration. I'm going to talk about it in detail in a minute. The second thing to do is you click the interface labels button and you choose what's primary versus backup. Step 3, verify your tunnel settings. And then there's IPSLA settings, which I'm going to talk about. This is off by default. It's very important you guys come in and turn this on. Very important. Like there are all kinds of issues with DPD and IPSLA and black hole situations where the tunnel's up, but traffic won't pass through it. IPSLA solves that. So if you orchestrate an IPSLA check, it will check through the through the service, through the tunnel, and make sure that you can really get to the internet. And then finally, the last step, and the button that you'll use the most, that's why it's kind of spaced out a little bit to the right, is the remote endpoint association button. This is where you pick the appliances in the tree and then pick what endpoints you want those appliances to form tunnels to. So one of the, quick aside, one of the kind of cool features I mentioned earlier is that you can import an icon. Highly recommend you do this. I think it adds to the experience. It looks nice. Scale it to 60 by 20 and you'll be good to go. So you set these, you come in here. So when you are interacting with a service in the service orchestration page, you'll see this plus bio breakout button. You click this, it pops this panel, and there are two options in this panel. One is the upload service icon thing I was just talking about. The other one is this bio breakout checkbox. This is checked by default. And this is sort of a future use thing, kind of not all that important, but I'm going to explain to you what it does. If you uncheck that, it takes this thing out of the policy list. It disconnects that service from the bio manager. So when you come into this panel in the future, into the service orchestration, you won't see plus bio breakout in blue. It'll actually be a gray or a square button down here in the bottom. So these buttons down here are configuration panels, and the blue links are links. They're actions to somewhere else, typically. All right, so the service prefix thing, this is just a short form of the service name. So when you click for any other service that you create other than Netscope, because it cannot be edited, but for, like in this case, Prisma or Semantic, if you create a service called Prisma, it'll pop up this edit service provider. You give it a long name, but then give it an uppercase prefix like PAN or SIM or NSK. That uppercase prefix is used in the tunnel name and it's used everywhere in the peer name, and it's a real easy way. It's also used in the filtering mechanism. It's just an easy way to refer to the service in a shortened form. You can actually set the prefix to whatever you want. If you want to set it to Prisma, that's fine. Okay, so let's talk about the remote endpoints panel. So when you click this button, remote endpoint configuration, this is kind of the meat of it. This is where the actual endpoint configuration lives. So here we're looking at Netscope. From 906 and beyond, this is what the Netscope defaults will look like. These are airport codes, by the way, which is a common way of doing host names in networking. So most people just know the network. I know most of them, I think, but it's much easier if you have the airport code followed by the city name. It works out better. But this can all be edited. So this is an inline filter or an inline edit panel. You can just click right in the box and start typing. I like those personally. They're easy to work with, very quick and quick to interact with, quick to edit. You can click paste the pre-shared keys very quickly. Something not mentioned here, if you want to change all the pre-shared keys simultaneously at one time, you can just click the PSK default link up here. It'll pop up a little panel and you can type in a pre-shared key and it'll set all these for you at the same time. You can also do the same thing with the interface label default. If you click this, it'll allow you to specify any in the interface label. This column here is like it's a white list. It says what labels should we include, should we even use or consider for orchestration for this particular endpoint. Don't get too hung up in this one. This is probably overkill. I don't know if we needed this level of filtering, but we have it, so we didn't take it out. But this works in conjunction with that primary backup panel. Like if you have to have both INET A and primary or backup, and you need to have INET A for the endpoint configured here in order for it to get orchestrated. But for most people, you just set interface label to any, and it'll do what you want. So the way that the backup works here is that, so let's take a look at Atlanta. So here's an endpoint called ATL1-Atlanta. The endpoint's IP address is this 163 IP. I want to use all these labels if they're on the box. My pre-share key is in here. My probe address, this is the IPSLA endpoint, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, is specified in this column. And then in this column, there's a backup remote endpoint field. Now, this acts like a good old-fashioned like go-to statement. It's saying, all right, for Atlanta 1, if the person chooses Atlanta 1 as their endpoint for a given appliance, it will automatically trail or automatically create DC11 Ashburn as the backup. So in other words, there's each primary in this row, or each endpoint in this row has a designated backup endpoint. But you can change these to whatever you want. Main point is that this is simply a go-to. So if you put DC11-Ashburn in this field, then it's going to go and find the DC11 Ashburn row and use these settings to create the backup tunnel. So the way that the IPSLA works is, let's see here. So if you look closely at this probe address column, by default, the Netscope definitions will have a bunch of 10.IPs in here. I replaced all of those in the SD-WAN deployment with HTTP SP-IPSLA silverpeak.cloud. However, if you leave that field blank, like in the case of AMS1 Amsterdam, there's nothing in the probe address field, then the system will pick up the configuration that is in the IPSLA settings button for the service. It'll say, oh, there's nothing specified for this endpoint. Let's go scoop up the default value that's configured here. Now, a nuance of this is kind of weird. I'm going to try to explain this in a way that it makes sense. Notice here that this says http://sp-IPSLA. I actually explicitly typed that out. Whatever you have set for the monitor type here is what gets assumed by all the IPs that you've configured here. So this panel is kind of like it's setting the defaults for all of these endpoints. But basically, if you specify something here, you're overriding whatever was specified in the IPSLA settings panel. You can have multiple probe IP addresses specified here. You just put a comma. You could do like http://sp-IPSLA silverpeak.cloud, comma, 8888 if you are so inclined. That works just fine. All the IPs in this list have to be down simultaneously for the endpoint in order for the tunnel to be down. Okay, now the final step, and sort of the money screen, is the association screen. This is where it actually happens. This is where you put the tunnel into production, or well, you instruct the system to actually go and do something by accessing the remote endpoint association button. We do not auto discover the closest POP for a given edge connect in service orchestration. What you do is you pick the appliances and then pick whichever endpoint is closest to them. And then finally, so after, once you've made these associations and fast forward, you've gone to Netscope or the service and you've configured the tunnels, you will then see this status screen, and it gives you for the service the connection status column in the far right over here. This is a real-time, an actual display of the tunnel plus IPSLA status. If it says up, it really is up. If it says down, it's very much down. Now, why is it down? It could be down because of IPSLA down, or it could be down because the tunnel itself is hard down. Okay. About IKE IDs, this really is the primary thing in terms of like if you want to take a tunnel that service orchestration created in the appliance and you want to translate those settings from the appliance into the service, into the cloud thing, what do you need to think about and know about? It really comes down to the tunnel local identifier and the pre-shared key, of course, but it's primarily the tunnel local identifier. This also gets us in trouble, which you'll see in a few minutes. So the IC IDs must sync up on both sides. This is really important. And if they don't sync up, you have one tunnel up to Prisma, and then you bring a second one up from your other Edge HA appliance, and it drops the first one, but the second one comes up. That's because you had an IC ID problem or an ambiguity in the IC IDs. Each tunnel must have a unique local identifier. Absolute requirement for IPsec to work correctly, especially if you have more than one tunnel coming from the same public IP address, as in the case of Edge HA. So the main service orchestration Netscope status page provides this table here purely so that you can export it. Like this column is shown here so that it's available to the export button. And this column here has a fixed format. Hostname _ the label at the endpoint IP. That's it. You cannot change that. The orchestration subsystem will create this local identifier always.